Well, hey, hi, Glenn here, workshop at the gardens, and thanks for joining in on another video. This one is about harvesting the big Scotch pine trunk. And there's a video out there, go check it out. I did the medallion. Most people call them cookies. I did a medallion because medallions are better than cookies. Anyways, that's a cool video, and that's the bottom part of this. This is the Scotch pine at the center of the gardens at Castle Rock. 90 years old. I'm guessing. I haven't counted the rings. I will at some point. 45 years ago, I had a tree fort in here, and I just grew up with this tree. We were really saddened by its passing, but every piece of it is just about getting salvaged and reused and repurposed, and it's a wonderful story. So the medallion that I took, that'll end up somewhere, not a coffee table, but it'll end up on a wall, and we will count those rings and tell you how much it is or how old it is. Now this trunk, I'm not 100% sure what will happen with this trunk. Will it be slabbed? I know I'm not going to make dimensional lumber out of it. Exactly how I will slab it and what we will use those slabs for, I can't tell you. Maybe a table, maybe wall decor, but just something, it needs to be saved. And so the process of what I want to do is I'm not putting a big wedge in the bottom of this to, in the classic standard of when you fell a tree, you put the big wedge to get it in there. I am working on just a single flat cut all the way across the bottom, doing my best to keep it level and line up. That's a 36-inch Canon super bar on there. So this Scotch pine is over, I should measure it, that makes sense, but well over 36 inches. So it's pushing 42 inches at the base. For a Scotch pine in Minnesota, it's a monster, and it always has been. The reason we're saving it. But working all the way around, I do have several little poly wedges, though, as I'm, getting closer and, closer to getting all the way through, I'm adding those wedges and then just hammering them in just to keep the chain from binding. At least that's the idea on that. And we'll just keep working our way all the way around that tree. I think I'm close. I'm probably going to have to pull out here pretty quick and then go on to the other side of the log. I did a fairly good job of keeping it level. There we go, pounding in another one of those wedges, just keeping it, minimizing the chain binding on it. But there will be a point where it does fall in. There's no doubt about that. It's kind of a fun time. This would be a great time, actually, to hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate all of you that watch these videos and like and comment. It really is appreciated. So thanks for doing that. But back to work. We're getting through this pretty big Scotch pine trunk. I wish I knew the exact history. I don't have anybody to ask. I know that this area used to be one of the growing fields for the nursery, wholesale nursery that was there that my grandfather started working at in the 1930s, and the lath house behind there is actually built where one of the original buildings of the nursery is. So it's just steeped in history here. Which is really quite cool. I think this was actually a volunteer tree. The one story that I do know is a volunteer Scotch pine tree that just grew up on the edge of one of the fields, and our family has a hard time taking trees out when they're volunteers. I can't take a oak out. I transplant every single oak that I find. Anyways, we're almost ready to cut through. We're going to get all the way through. And yes, I will successfully get the chainsaw, bind it in there, because I make that final cut. And shazam, there it is. I think we lock it in. And that's okay, because I kind of planned on that happening and wasn't worried about it. I mean, in a perfect world, sure, yeah, you just get that perfect cut and you're able to pull the blade right out and it doesn't have any issues. But since it's in the middle of the tree and it's not going to get bound on anything, I am going to have Al, the concrete guy, come over, and he's going to pull it out. I'm going to take the skid loader and just put a little pressure up top, and that will release enough, and he'll be able to pull the chainsaw out. Yeah, and here we go. So he pulls it out, and and then we're going to topple the tree. There we go. Come on. All right. chainsaws out so we can push that log over. And just like that, I can really get a good idea how big that log is. Well, and it's time to, now what are we going to do with that? It's not that big of a deal. I don't like to leave, the logs that I really care about sitting on the ground. I don't leave any of them on the ground. I use just some old railroad timbers to keep them up. This one, I'm building a little bit of a cradle, so I have some leftover treated 6x6, and so I will just make a very simple cradle, and all that means is 2 6x6 one way and 2 the other way, and that log should sit in there. Just a couple timber screws that are going to go in there and hold that in there, and that'll make it easier for me to move it around and keep it off the ground and figure out. That's an 885 New Holland skid loader, so a good size skid loader, and this is where you get even a better idea how big this Scotch pine trunk is, or this tree was. Timber frame on the workshop in the back there, but yeah, we gently move the tree or the trunk around a little bit to where I can get a good angle on it. So you got to curl in, slide all the way underneath it. You wouldn't be able to lift that big of a log with a machine like that just out on the end of the fork. So sliding underneath it and having to get the forks all the way underneath it to get the proper leverage on that. But it's going to be a beauty, and I will study this log for a while, because just the where the branching comes out and the compression figure and all of that happens inside a log like this with that much branching is going to be pretty spectacular. And as I mentioned earlier, my tree fort, there's still part of the tree fort in there, so I'm sure I'm gonna hit a nail or two, but you know what? I put them in there, so it'll be okay. There you go. Look at that beast. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Anyways, I appreciate you following along. There are going to be more videos because the rest of that Scotch pine became a timber frame. So you're going to want to check that out, because that turned out, it's done. It's absolutely beautiful. And then we will get this trunk all milled up, and you can just follow along on the journey of this tree and all the things we're doing at the gardens of Castle Rock and inside the workshop at the gardens. Thanks again. Glenn here, workshop at the gardens. Cheers.